Welcome to Calculus 3. It's going to be fun and exciting. If you have a computer and you log into our Canvas course, this would be your landing page. If you're doing it from the phone or the phone app, I'm not sure where it would send you, but you can get to it by pressing the homepage link. And our class, on the landing page, you'll see some important links, but most importantly, our class is organized over 16 weeks for online. All of our materials are inside modules, so the reading, the lecture videos, the assignments, and each week has its own module. I put the schedule over here, and you can click on, say, the link to get to the modules, the first module, this week's module. You can also find the syllabus over here, and we'll talk about that in a second. If I click on vectors in space, you will find that the typical format of my weekly modules is some sort of objective, what we're trying to get done this week. The lessons, which link to the textbooks and the videos and some applets to play with, which I'll show you a sample of in a little bit. And also what assignments to complete are contained within the module. This week is a little bit weird because we have an extra assignment over here. If I click on the objectives, a little bit more detail about what we're trying to get out of this week. So these are specific lessons that hopefully you can look back and say, oh, I know what you're talking about. The homework assignments are done through My Open Math. So are the exams and some of the quizzes. The graphing assignments are usually done in discussions. They have like a set of instructions for you to finish, and you come back and do a 2 posts. And when we have like just talk discussions, sometimes they're worth points, sometimes they're just an opportunity for you to communicate. And I'll talk about those too. First, let's take a look at one of the lesson pages. This week we're learning about vectors. And usually I organize a lesson with some sort of introduction, maybe an interactive graph from GeoGebra. Hopefully it works great on your system. And then a link to the section that this lesson is based on. My lessons and videos and homework assignments are based on the same textbook. If you click on, say, this tab, it draws down and shows you the video related to it. I try to make it subject line so you have an idea of what we're talking about inside of it. The lecture notes that I use or that I have are here. So they have interactive elements to demonstrate the concept. And then to select on the different sections of lecture notes, you click on the left link and then it takes you to the next section and so on. I found that having a bunch of GeoGebra applets embedded inside the page is sometimes problematic, so I have external links that you can link on to get to. We learn about vectors in plane and vectors in 3D this week, so we have lessons based on that. And then usually I use GeoGebra a lot, so I try to give some examples of how I do these things in GeoGebra. So I have like a quick video of the functions I use and what they show you, and then some instructions like how to plot vectors inside 3-space or 2-space really in GeoGebra. Also 3-space. Some other things you could do in 3-space you can see, so you can have a plane, so you know what a plane is, that kind of thing. Be sure to introduce yourself. First post on Friday, second post on Saturday, where you go back and you try to respond to at least 2 of your other classmates, find commonality, try to make a connection or rapport, and use that as maybe to develop study buddies, because that's always helpful, especially at higher level classes. The homework assignment is done in My Open Math. It's an external link, so if you click on over here, My Open Math usually has an entry page. I'm going to click reset. You press start, and then it asks a question. Sometimes you put in numbers. I'll put in random numbers. You press submit when you're ready to get the answer, and if it's wrong, it'll tell you it's wrong. You can get similar problems. You can try it again, and once you get it right, it'll tell you have a point or whatever points that's worth correct. You can even retry it after you get it right, and even if you get your next attempt wrong, it still records that point that from the first time. You can go to jump around other problems by pressing these arrow keys. Some problems are more than just typing in numbers. You might type in equations. Some problems are graphs, but I don't seem to have one of those on here. But you might, and you just click on the graph tool. When you've submitted and you liked it, you can move on to the next set of problems. Sorry, I meant to say the next assignment. For this week's graphing assignment, it's basically just using GeoGebra or your graphing utensil tools, or just hand drawing what vectors look like, and according to these problems. So in this case, you're given a particular vector, and you just want to graph out what 2 times that vector looks like, half of that vector looks like, a -1, a -1/2, to get a sense of how vectors work in planes. Then we move on to vectors in 3 space. So we label whatever 3 vectors you want in 3 space, A, B, C, and D. You want to show that A and B, just choose them so they're in opposite directions. C and D are perpendicular, so 90 degrees between them. Even though they're inside 3 space, you still have a sense of angles between 2 vectors. That's talked about in the videos and notes. And then C and D are skewed, so not necessarily 90 degrees. Some are between 0 degrees and 90 degrees between them. You go back to planar vectors, vectors inside a plane, so 2-dimensional graph because it's easier to work with. I have specified Q, R, and S vectors over here. And what you're trying to do is create a graph so that by drawing vectors using just any multiple of these vectors added or subtracted, so that you have the shift the origin point along each of the arrows that you draw according to these vectors up until you have the final terminal point 0, 2, so a point on the graph. There may be multiple answers. They could be awfully complicated. They could be awfully simple. You're just supposed to figure out a combination of these, any number of these vectors. Maybe you only need 2 of them to do it. Maybe you can't do it with 1 of them, unfortunately, but you need at least 2, but you could use all 3 if you want to. And you can use repeated versions of them if you need to. You change the signs with the scalar multiplication of -1 until you solve the problem. You post your solution. You come back after, I guess, Saturday, and you look at other students' posts and say, okay, you just answer these questions, I guess. And again, you can draw these by hand. You don't actually have to use GeoGebra. You can use Desmos if you want, though Desmos, I think, has problems with 3D. The problem is doing things in 3D by hand might be difficult. You can also use an advanced graphing calculator or apps on your phone. The whole point is to take screenshots of what you've done and post those into the discussion. Okay, the final assignment for this week is the unit, or the quiz. This is sort of a review quiz of derivatives and integrals. You're going to show your work. So if you click on this link, it'll take you to Gradescope. Your Gradescope will look a little bit different than mine because you have the student view, but you should be able to download a PDF copy of the quiz, and then you can print it out, or you can just write the problems, and you go ahead and answer the questions, but show your work. These are definitely Calculus 1 kinds of questions where you take the derivative using chain rule and this transcendental function, and then you come up with the equation for the tangent line associated with it. So you have time to look that up and write it out. We will have different kinds of quizzes throughout the semester. Sometimes they'll be Gradescope. Sometimes they will be MyOpen Math embedded in there. You still have to show your work because I want to sample how you write things and give you feedback on, so you get a sample of how I grade things before the exams. Again, be sure to look through the syllabus so you know how this class is organized, and let me know if you have any questions. We do have office hours. These first 3 office hours are online. However, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I will have a Zoom link for each of those. So if you can't make it to Wednesday in person, I said it all wrong. Sorry. These first 3 office hours are in my office in person in Science 233. But for Wednesday and Thursday, I will also attach it to a Zoom link in Tech Connect Zoom. So if you have questions, you can come see me. You can log in there if you don't have to come on campus. Friday, I also have it on Zoom, exclusively Zoom. And yeah, let me know if you've got questions, and have a good week. Have fun with calculus. All right, take